Welcome, fellow travelers of the forgotten roads and wanderers of wilds to the verdant enclave. I'm your host, and sometimes friendly DM. More relevant to today's discussion, I am also your fellow wanderer and wilderness guide to the Ranger class of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning from the last few videos, thank you for continuing on this journey into the Ranger class with me. Last time, we discussed the level 5 features, when the Ranger gained their extra attack, proficiency bonus increased, and second level spells. If you want to hear the details, feel free to check out the videos. So, what happens next? Shockingly, another choice. The Ranger gets to choose fresh choices to add to their Natural Explorer and Favored Foe features. I've heard these next choices referred to elsewhere as diminishing returns on the Ranger features Favored Foe and Natural Explorer, and I'll be honest, I see these more as expansions rather than diminishments. As at level 1, players now get to choose another terrain to add to their repertoire, and another enemy, or enemies if you choose humanoid, to have free advantage on tracking and remembering lore, weaknesses, and habits. As before, there is a significant risk that players might make less than useful choices here. The most obvious solution is that players should be more than able to ask their DMs what choices would be the most campaign appropriate. DMs, if you aren't willing to divulge the outright next main features of your campaign, I recommend representing to your players a smaller list of choices selected from their pre-existing lists. For example, I sometimes offer my Ranger player a list including one choice that would be the more imminently useful, one that would be useful later, and one that may or may not be useful at all, in order to help narrow their focus. Another thing you can do is foreshadow the next enemies by having a few of them occurring against your party with increasing frequency. Another option is that players can simply look at their campaign map, especially as an in-character roleplay, and make an educated guess on where they are traveling from and where they are moving to. Leaving grasslands and forests, heading for mountains or Arctic regions? Which is harder to survive in? Where are you most likely going to be spending the majority of your time? Mountains are rugged and dangerous, but maybe not as widespread as, for example, Arctic regions. So you might want to choose Arctic if you want to see the more extensive use of your Natural Explorer feature and reap the most benefits from it. Or choose Mountain to help your group survive in a more demanding and harsh terrain. However, if your group is moving instead into a grassland area, maybe don't choose Arctic. This obviously leads to further in-game research about the most typical inhabitants of your next adventuring region. You can utilize your fellow player characters, or world resources like libraries or NPCs, to gain knowledge of your next regional destination. Specifically, the creature-based threats. In the Arctic region, for example, are you more likely to encounter lizards, undead, or barbarians? Are beasts more prominent, or are aberrations? This kind of player interaction with the world invites DMs to delve deeper into their world building, regional lore, and to set plot hooks, set up character rewards or side quests to hunt monsters down for rare parts, and maybe even insert more deadly monsters, as, after all, Now the group should have a better chance of handling them thanks to character research. Well, you know, sometimes. Let's remember that at level 5, character's proficiency bonus increased to 3. This affects your favorite foe feature because it means you are more likely than before to succeed on your survival checks and knowledge checks regarding your chosen prey categories, in addition to having advantage. And Natural Explorer feature, which now just added a new terrain, because of the expertise function for any wisdom or knowledge ability check related to your chosen terrains. If you choose 2 adjacent terrains, this means you can step from one to the next during travel and not lose pace, keep your party moving rapidly through all manner of difficult terrain to outmaneuver your foes, not lose your awareness of your surroundings, not get lost, find twice as much food, and glean information from your quarry's tracks. Furthermore, Primeval Awareness reaches 6 miles so long as you are using it within your chosen terrains. So if you used it in a forest before, and that forest ended before reaching 6 miles from your position, you only covered 1 mile's worth of that different terrain. Now, if your chosen terrains are adjacent to each other, your Primeval Awareness extends to the full 6 miles. Interestingly, this range equals or exceeds the regional world-altering effects of most dragons' lairs, allowing you to detect if a powerful dragon is home or not before knocking on their front door. I'm sure that's entirely coincidental. The Beastmaster also specifically benefits from that proficiency increase, but how significantly? In my last video, I compared a Bloodhawk Beast Companion to an ordinary Bloodhawk, but another way to look at it is to compare the Beast Companion to another beast. On the left, you will see the Bloodhawk Beast Companion of a level 6 ranger's most battle-relevant capabilities. On the right is the same information, but now for a brown bear. The Bloodhawk has an armor class of 15, 4 points higher than the brown bear. With 24 hit points, the Bloodhawk has 10 points less than the brown bear. While the brown bear has multi-attack, it has plus 6 to hit, 1 point less than the Bloodhawk. The Bloodhawk does 1 point of damage on average less than the brown bear's bite, or 3.5 points of damage on average less than the brown bear's claws. In summary, the Bloodhawk is harder to hit, but easier to kill, more likely to hit, though it deals less damage on average, and it lacks the multi-attack feature. For now. Except for hit points, multi-attack, and the damage of their attacks, the Beastmaster Companion feature made a challenge rating 1/8 creature nearly on par with a challenge rating 1 creature, or nearly 8 times as combat capable as the base abilities of an ordinary Bloodhawk. Now, what if we were to do a similar comparison between the features of the Ranger and its nominally superior class, the Fighter? We see from this comparison that the Fighter has fewer primary class features, a total of 7 by this point, than the Ranger, which has a total of 11. But the purposes of the features are aimed toward different types of play styles. The Fighter has at their fingertips features which are aimed toward surviving difficult combats, which makes sense, as they are, fighters. The Fighter's subclasses add variability and options, but the Fighter is, overall, so far, fairly simple. Fight and survive fighting. The main Ranger features are more of a mixed bag, giving the Ranger versatility in their role as a combatant and as an explorer. The Ranger subclasses add to their combat capability and methodology, layering complexities on top of complexities. In my last video, I attempted to emphasize the differences in levels 2 and 3 between the fighter and the ranger, and in reflecting back on it during the last few weeks' break, dealing with seasonal illnesses and life, I began to wonder if I might have come off too strongly. To address that, let's remember that some of the points I am taking into examination here. First, that Hunter's Mark is required for Rangers to be comparable to other martial classes, and second, that to do good damage as an archer, a fighter with a bow is better than a ranger with a bow. That specifically is a overgeneralization, a statement without particulars, and clearly does not allow for variables. My goal is to address this statement, but since it is made as a generalized statement, then I am approaching it as a generalized statement, which is to be held true if it is proved true through all 20 levels, or at least the majority of all 20 levels. Now, let's be clear that my statements in the last video were possibly premature. I've compared, so far, 3 levels of combat and exploration emphatic gameplay, both game pillars that the fighter and ranger should be most capable in, out of 20 possible levels. 15% of possible gameplay is hardly enough to realistically state the superiority, inferiority, or comparability of either class. But it should also be pointed out that most groups seem to rarely get past level 5, let alone higher. So these early levels are the most played, and therefore the most heavily compared, and therefore for most groups, typically more relevant. These early levels are foundational to the higher levels, and so conceptually set expectations for how eventual gameplay might go. Let's also remember that those levels I've compared so far are not in isolation from each other. Instead, the graphs show a cumulative trend over the course of multiple levels and several fights, that the ranger has consistently been above the fighter, without the aid of Hunter's Mark, and in spite of the fighter's formidable action surge. But the characters have not yet obtained the extra attack feature of level 5, which might affect the impact of Hunter's Mark, and enable the fighter to make a once per short rest 4 attacks on a single round, or 5 if they're using a second weapon. So, is it possible that the fighter will rise above the ranger after level 5? It certainly is within the realm of possibility. And so, I would like to amend my earlier statement last video by saying, thus far, the ranger has outpaced the fighter in total damage, and except at level 1, average damage per hit, and Hunter's Mark was not needed to achieve this. Level 4 and level 5 have yet to have their information collected for comparison. I hope you're finding this analysis as interesting as I am, and that you will continue to explore the Ranger class with me, as well as hopefully joining Adrian and Varen in the land of the Hunter. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.